Hello, everybody. My name is Maurice Button. I'm the CEO of Sitting Financial Global, and it is my pleasure today to be interviewing Stephanie Maier, who is Global Head of Sustainability and Impact Investment at GAM Investments. Stephanie is going to be speaking at our upcoming event on climate and ESG data. This summit's being held on the 12th of June at the America Square Conference Centre in London. Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's dive into our first question, if we may. So, what are the top ESG data challenges from an asset manager's perspective?
So we still have the ongoing challenges of quality, comparability, coverage that have really been around, I think, since the beginning of the ESG data and ESG integration journey. I think we've got some, particular challenges coming up now, and those predominantly relate to how do we capture some of that forward-looking data, ESG data. In fact, most data is predominantly backward-looking, but now we're looking at how those companies are positioned for, the net zero transition, addressing other sustainability challenges, and that really requires a very different type of data. And I think that's one of the areas where, as an industry, we're most challenged and we're doing the most work. I think the other piece is also this move to not just capturing process, policy, but actually outcomes and impacts. And there we have another challenge really around the methodologies. How are we going to measure these things? How do we bring back and pull together the data that's going to enable an assessment of that end impact as well? So I think those are the main challenges, clearly both facilitated by, but to a certain extent also additionally challenged by the regulatory context and requirements that we have around ESG data, which again have dramatically shifted over the last few years.
So a challenging time. And how do you incorporate this ESG data into your investment strategies? Because presumably you're getting mixed types of quality and range of data from different investee companies. So is that a challenge in itself, to ensuring that consistency of how you incorporate the data into your investment decisions?
Yes, I think one of the maybe more prosaic but nonetheless really important elements of that data is actually, what does the data infrastructure look like? How do you ingest what is now a considerable quantity of data, of varying quality, varying coverage. We use multiple ESG data providers, as I'm sure a number of the industry does. How do you marry that with your internal data, as well? And really that sort of just bringing in the data and creating that infrastructure is really the starting point of being able to integrate it into the investment process, but also reporting process, oversight process as well. So, we've also developed a number of sort of tools to enable us to do that, and then also processes to be able to look at, what are those gaps? How do we deal with conflicting data? How do we take the data and make it meaningful and use it to, meaningfully add insight into that investment decision making?
No, I can see that's very, very challenging. And presumably another part of this is how do you help your clients to better understand the ESG profile of your funds?
Yeah, so last year we introduced a set of ESG reports. Well, in fact, the year before we introduced ESG summary reports, which gave very sort of basic overview of ESG ratings, those and carbon metrics, those that are most carbon intensive, least carbon intensive, highest, lowest scores, which our clients really value just in terms of getting a much better sort of overview of their portfolio. Last year we introduced more extended reports which gave more granularity around that, also including things like the sort of controversies and other issues, as well as involvement in various activities. What we will obviously see this year is also the introduction of the first periodic principal adverse impact reporting under SFDR. Now, clearly that doesn't apply to all of the industry, but certainly very significant for us in our client base, and an area where I think we'll provide a lot more data to our clients. I think the question is how much insight that brings, and I think that's going to be a big piece for the industry to really work on, is how do you make those PAR disclosures meaningful and decision useful for the end client.
Yes, indeed. I guess it's a process of education across the board, isn't it? But overall, do you think that ESG data is empowering better investment decision making?
Short answer, yes. But I think the key issue that is perhaps more required than it ever was is really that ability to distinguish and understand the limitations of the data. All data has limitations, and to ensure that it's being used appropriately for the right decision, recognizing the limitations of that is really more important than ever. Now, I imagine our data set will continue to build out, quality, comparability, coverage will improve, but that requirement to really use that data appropriately is now more necessary than ever.
Yeah. One final question. I know we're running out of time, and not wishing to spring this on you, but looking at ESG, the social and the governance side, the focus is largely around climate and to some extent nature impacts and biodiversity impacts. But what about the S&G? Do you find there's sufficient data on those particular parts of ESG?
So undoubtedly, there's a lot more quantitative data available on the environmental side. I think governance and social data is there and is growing. There's certain things you can measure, and there's certain things that are very hard to measure. And the question really is, how good are some of those proxies or not? I mean, on the governance side, again, there's quite a lot of quantitative data that can be used if you're looking at something like board composition. But how do you measure culture? How do you measure the tone from the top? That is something that's very difficult to recreate in a data set, which is also why engagement, fundamental analysis, talking to the companies is so important. Then on the social side, likewise, health and safety data, injury rates, etc., things that we can capture. One of the areas that I think we're going to see a lot more development on is actually that, in part driven by regulation around human rights and supply chain, labour standards, due diligence, a lot more granularity on quality of social audits, those types of things. So yes, I think it's still fair to characterise social as being the sort of the less quantitative, but I think there's a lot there still. And going back to the previous point, if you know how to use it and you understand and can interpret, the gaps as well as the data that's present, I think you can still get a decision useful set of information to start the analysis from.
Fantastic. Very interesting to talk to you, Stephanie. And we look forward to hearing much more on these issues at the event on the 12th of June at America Square, London. But I very much hope that our viewers will be able to join us at the event in person, or indeed they can attend virtually as well. So it just remains for me to say thank you very much for sharing those insights, Stephanie. Look forward to seeing you on the 12th of June.
Thank you very much. Likewise, really looking forward to the conference and the discussion.